Hey guys, Colvin here with your fishing report for Bull Shoals Lake Boat Dock. Today is February 9th. Got out on the water for a couple days. Last week I was up in Schaumburg doing shows. We had some crazy weather come through. Water level's at 650. The water level's still low. The Corps keeping it pretty low this year. Water temps hovering in that 48 degrees. We did get down to 46 that last week when we had that cold front come through. Found water temps as warm as 51 in the back of some of the creeks up the lake. The shallow bites kind of been hit or miss. It all depending on the weather. You know, yesterday we had weather in the 70s and it's in the 40s today. It's that time of year, so just gotta roll with the punches. If there's enough wind where you can get out, there's still a shallow bite. Those fish are catching a few on a crankbait. If the wind's blowing, you kind of have to have that wind blowing pretty good for it to be a good crankbait bite. Still throwing the rock crawler. Throwing the rock crawler up on those bluff end channel swing banks, those deeper banks. If they got ledge rock, chunk rock, any kind of rock where those fish can tuck in there. If the water's clear, what I'm doing is I'm throwing either the natural color, something more natural, and there you go. There's some of that. What's going? You got algae blooming all over the lake, and it's tough to deal with depending on what bank you're on. There's going to be a ton of it. If it gets real dirty, real windy, you get along those clay banks that have got the water all stirred up, or if you get back in one of those creeks, the brighter colors are working. Seems like you gotta cater to the watercolor depending on where you're at and how much wind's blowing. And I'm really still focusing more on those channel swing banks. And if the water's real clear and you still got wind, the phantom greens, the natural stuff, the natural brown, natural green, the old school stuff's going to work. And I'll switch back and forth from the rock crawler to the wigglewort or the Brad's wiggler, depending on the actual bank. The wigglewort seem to be fishing that parallel and keeping the boat in like 7 feet of water. I want to feel that bait going through and ticking every one of those rocks. If I get right up next to the bank and it's a little bit deeper right next to the bank, let's say I'm 5 foot away and there's 10 foot of water there, what I'll do is I'll pick up that Spro rock crawler. That just seems to get down a little deeper, and that'll help out on those little bit deeper banks. Those fish want to move up. We got a moon coming in the next couple weeks. That's going to help us out. If there's we got a deep bite going on still. It's kind of hit or miss. The shad's moving around throughout the lake, but if you go back into some of these pockets and some of these, what I'm doing is I'm following the old creek channel down into the backs of these creeks, and I'm looking at my graph the whole time. A 3 mile creek is a little bit easier than a 7 mile creek, but paying attention, it takes a little time to find those fish. They've been sitting right on the old creek channel ledge. If there's a tree nearby, it seems to be not all the way in the back and not all the way out in the main channel. It's more like halfway back in the creeks where that channel turns. If you can find where that channel turns, if you got trees around and you can find that defined old creek bed, anywhere from 40, 50, 60 feet, if you can find that tree next to that old ledge of the creek bed, you should be able to get right in a hurry. If if I'm probing around, I'm going to drop a spoon down on them real quick. It takes a little time. You get one to fire, you can usually catch 3 or 4 fish off that same little area, and you can go back to that area throughout the day after you've, if you're looking to catch more, you can kind of revisit those areas that have fish, because there'll be a whole school in there on them. There's also guys catching them on secondary points, dragging either a jig, a twin tail grub, using real slow. Those points that come off, secondary points that roll off into deep water, what they're doing is they're throwing up on top of the point and dragging either like a menace grub, twin tail, like I said, and green pumpkin, and they're just working that back. Some guys are also throwing a Carolina rig. Did get a couple doing that on a shaky head. If you can find anything on that point, if you got a big secondary point that runs off, go through, graph over it. 25, 35 foot of water seems to be the ticket. If you got a little rock pile or something before it rolls off, those fish seem to be they seem to be schooled up in those little areas. Cast up on top of the point and drag it down. It's a little slow approach, but you're going to get bit. Also, a drop shot. I'm catching a lot of fish on a drop shot still, either shad-shaped worm, if they're really keyed in on shad in the channel, or if I get up on those points or in front of docks. That seems to be working pretty good. I'll switch over to either the ice jig. If I'm fishing real deep, I'll pick up the ice jig or the spoon. Now, as far as the docks go, there's a kind of a deep dock pattern. If there's a little bit of wind, what I'm doing is I'm approaching the dock. The docks that are better have the channel or deep water nearby. I'll throw a mega bass. If it's sunny, I'll go with a silver side shad color bait. If it's cloudy, I'll throw like a mixed stick in like the bone color or solid color. That'll help you out. You seem to have a little bit of wind, and you're not going to catch a ton of fish on that pattern, but it's consistent throughout the lake. As it warms up, those fish are wanting to move up, and those docks that are close to deep water, they can go up, get in the shade, get a little bit of warmth, and eat whatever's hanging out under there. I'm also throwing the fish head spin out in front of those docks. That seems to be the deeper docks. I'll cast parallel to the front of the dock and let it drop and just slow roll it out in front of those docks. Not, just kind of break it off into sections and fish it real slow. If the wind's blowing in there, that definitely helps. Wind is a big key for this time of year, unless those fish are deep, so you want to think about that going into it. It's winter time, guys. It's cold one day, it's 70 the next day. Fishing's only going to get better. It starts to warm up. I talked to a few guys up the lake. They fished up in I fished Big Creek last week. There's some color up there, guys. Those creek arms up the lake are going to warm up faster. So if we get a steady warm front or just steady weather, those areas of the lake that are up north are going to do a little bit better. Gooley, Spring, Theodosia, Big Creek. Talked to a couple guys that went and fished up in the Sugarloafs, and I guess there's a bit of a shad kill. So that's something to look for when you're out on the water. It's that we haven't gotten real cold, but something to keep in mind, if you go way up in that dirty water, it may warm up faster, but it also cools off faster. I'm going to Tinley Park to do a show this weekend, guys. If you guys live in the Chicago area, you want to come book a trip, you want to talk about Bull Shoals, I'd be more than happy to talk to you guys. Have a good one.